Oh, guess what? I have to re-record this again because I had audio issues before. So I'm gonna click into my own stream. Yep. Okay. My audio is much, much better this time. Sometimes my microphone makes me sound like a chicken. Forgot to go out of the recording and back into it. I usually have to do that with RTV Warriors when we do Fit Historian recordings. So my apologies for that. Anyways, let's redo this episode 2 stats breakdown. So if I mess up the jokes I had the first time, I can just have a do-over here. Excellent. It was a really short recording the first time. It only took me, I think, 17 minutes to get through all of it. So let's jump into the stats here for episode 2 in case you fell asleep during all of the yodeling that occurred. So the first stat I looked up, which I already posted on Twitter, was how well do teams do with the oldest son of a bitch in the cast? So of course, Rex and Ryan went home. They went home this episode. Phil Kogan cried. He was depressed. It looked like he was gonna run out of the building and drown himself in the Danube River, but luckily production intervened. So Phil Kogan's run did not end at 406 legs or whatever the hell the count is that we're at. Certainly not 401. Okay, so let's quickly run through the placement breakdown for teams each season that have the oldest SOB in the cast. So 12th place, this is, by the way, just for the American version. 12th place, nobody. 11th place, we have 4 teams, including Rex and Ryan. 10th place, 3 teams. 9th place, 5 teams. 8th place, 6 teams. 7th place, 2 teams. 6th place, 4 teams. 5th place, 3 teams. 4th place, 2 teams. 3rd place, 2 teams. 2nd place, 2 teams. And 1st place is extremely asterisky because that is, spoiler alert, from season 24, Dave and Connor. Uh, Dave had to do the fewest number of roadblocks compared to anybody else who had crossed the finish line since the roadblock rule was implemented in season 6. So, because of that special treatment there, a lot of people view his win as a very controversial one. So, it's very asterisky. Not to mention it's a returning season, and it was season 24's route, which are both also very asterisky aspects for the season. Okay, and of course, another stat we'll jump into from Rex and Ryan is the fact that there have been a lot of NFL players and coaches and spouses of NFL players who have competed on the Amazing Race. So I did a stats breakdown for that. I excluded cheerleaders since they're their own subset category, and there have been tons of cheerleaders on the Amazing Race. In fact, a lot of versions tend to lean in towards cheerleaders. So 12th place, nobody. 11th place, the aforementioned Rex and Ryan. 10th place, nobody. 9th place, one team, Chester and Ephraim. This time I got his pronunciation right. Last time I was very unsure of myself. 8th place, we have Jameek and Cassie, who were on the Amazing Race Canada. However, Jameek was in the CFL, and to most Americans, the CFL does not count as football. And if you ask people from countries outside of Canada and the States, they say it's just soccer is football, football is soccer. I don't know how else to put it. 7th place is Monica, Arndt, Cherie, and Neil and Kristen. Monica Orange Cherie is pronounced that way because that's the way that Phil Kogan pronounced their name in the first several seasons of The Amazing Race. It was hilarious because if somebody's name ended with the letter A, and then Phil had to say the word and after that, he would always put in the letter R into the word and. So it was always Monica Arndt Cherie. And he had to work on this for a while until he was really assimilated into America. That was his Kiwi accent was really showing there. 6th and 5th place, nobody. 4th place, Gary and D'Angelo. Although I think D'Angelo has tried to get his appearance on the Amazing Race redacted from all of history. 3rd place, Amani and Marcus. Really miss Amani. 2nd place, of course, the separated couple who came back together and loved Love drinking the holy water, Ken and Tina. And no winners. No winners on this list. I should note Neil and Kristen in Amazing Race Canada 3 were quite hilarious father-daughter team. Quentin and Maddie become the first team since Jessica and Brittany to mix up countries visited in Europe. Jessica and Brittany, although they said the edit was misleading, that they didn't know where Switzerland was. Quentin and Maddie mixed up a town. They mixed up Innsbruck, thinking it was in Germany, so they mixed up Germany and Austria. And then Maddie doubles down on it, telling Quentin, "Oh, you've been to Austria before." He said, "Oh no, I've been to Bosnia." I mean, at least she knew it ended with Ia, so at least she had that working for her. It would have been hilarious though if they drove to Bosnia, because Bosnia and Austria, I don't know if you've looked at a map of Europe, they're not close together, that's for sure. And Quentin and Maddie luckily didn't have to go to Moondon like they had to in Amazing Race 4, because I'm sure they would have pulled a Russell and Cindy and mix up Moondon with Moond. Uh, I'd be surprised if they didn't make that mistake without some sort of interference from another team or somebody looking over their shoulder at the clue and trying to correct them. Speaking of Jessica and Brittany, quick sidebar here. Jessica, we don't know where in the world she is. Jessica from season 28, that is. I guess there's been plenty of Jessicas on The Amazing Race. Nobody knows where she is. It's this really bizarre case where she was a really successful businesswoman after her appearance on season 28, started her own cryptocurrency, and then she backed out of helping out the people who backed her for the cryptocurrency. Her and her partner fled out of the country. FBI has been hunting for them. Interpol, I believe, has been hunting for them as well. And I believe, I'm not 100% certain on this, so correct me if I'm wrong. I believe her partner has roots in Eastern Europe. So the working theory is that they may or may not be in Russia, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but Russia and the States aren't getting along too well right now. So think I think she is assumed to be in Russia, but I haven't done any further investigating over the past 6 months. But I've really want to make a podcast on it, because out of all the true crime incidents that have come out of The Amazing Race, Jessica just vanishing off the face of the earth and being hunted by FBI and Interpol is just really fascinating to me. Because again, it's been a few years now and she hasn't been found. Okay, and of course with them, I wish Quentin and Maddie had been to Bosnia. Everyone knows Balkans is pretty much my favorite region to travel in Europe. You could make the argument for Andalusia in Spain, or Calabria in Italy, where I've gone to, where a lot of my cousins and ancestors are from, that date back hundreds and hundreds of years. But Amazing Race, still, even with the chartered plane, they still couldn't touch down in the Balkans. And of course, once they don't really have the chartered plane or pandemic protocols anymore, Balkans will be even further out of the question, because one of the main reasons why I believe they haven't been there in all 34 seasons, aside from a lake here in Romania or their Croatia visits, is because there aren't really major transport or airport hubs in the Balkans. So it's not the easiest place to get to, especially when they're still abiding by the 12 legs and 20 days filming schedule. So they would have to, if they were to go to the Balkans, they would probably have to do 3 legs in a row there and then fly to their next destination. So hopefully we get to the Balkans soon, because Sarajevo and Bosnia is one of the most fascinating cities I've been to. They can probably skip out on North Macedonia, but I'd love to see Bosnia, Serbia, Kosovo, Montenegro. Montenegro, very underrated country. So I've been depressed about the lack of Montenegro on The Amazing Race. And then there was even this one guy saying, oh, my trivia host, he was saying, oh, I bet you haven't been to Moldova, but now I want to go to Moldova even harder now, just to prove him wrong and listen to Ozone, even though they're half Romanian too. Numa. Wouldn't mind hitting up Transnistria there too. Anyways, aside from let's move on. Austria has been visited in 6 separate seasons of The Amazing Race, and this visit ends the longest streak of not visiting Austria because the previous record was a gap between season 4 and season 14. Here, the gap was between season 23 with the infamous Donatorum folly with Jason and Amy not being able to claim that fast forward, which was all the Donatorum was also visited in season 4 of Amazing Race, and I guess they just skipped out on that for 11 seasons. But here we are back in Austria, and this is the first visit to Innsbruck since season 3. And the funny thing with the visit to Innsbruck in season 3 is that it combined the Morocco flight scramble to Munich, and the Munich visit, Innsbruck, and Fusen. They were all in one leg. So because of presumably budget cuts, nowadays that would be 3 different legs. And here we had Munich and Innsbruck completely split up. It's not a 3-day leg like it was in season 3. We're not going to have Andre and Damon fall asleep and be so late getting into Europe that the first clue that they open tells them to go directly to the pit stop and then give back the $1 allotted for the leg back to Phil Kogan as a joke. Yeah, Phil was much happier then than he was this week with having to bid farewell to Rex and Ryan. And of course, another question I had was, how many times has yodeling or some form of German singing been done on The Amazing Race? And it's been done a hell of a lot of times. So I quizzed, just for fun, David Bindley, the Grim Recapper. He's the guy who does all the challenge compendiums for all the reality shows out there. He's now a co-host on RTV Warriors with myself and Michael when we do seasons of V is the Mole. And just off the top of his head, he answered almost right away. He said 5 times he could think of: the speed bump yodeling that Mark and Bob had to do in season 20, the Vienna Boys Choir roadblock in season 23 with Travis making that one famous, the Bavarian Love Song roadblock in season 26 where Jeff and Jackie presumably made their sex tape, the Chicken Song Dance detour in season 32 that Will and James and Kaylee and Halen did in season 32. And here we are with the yodeling roadblock in season 34. And I believe we also had yodeling in the Mobelgia a couple of years ago. So lots of yodeling on The Amazing Race. So after hearing it so many times, I think it was a great choice by CBS to tell The Amazing Race producers to make this episode a 90-minute episode so that the first 45 minutes of the 90-minute time slot on TV was dedicated just to yodeling. And in case you wanted more music, we had bells and dancing as the detour, and that was it for the episode. I don't know about you, but I really tuned out of the yodeling after about a minute or two. It was like watching Amazing Race Canada. I mean, they even had costumes for it. Okay. And of course, yodeling, that's the reason number 142 why I've never really dated white women. I mean, I just can't picture any other country where yodeling would be acceptable outside of Central Europe. Like I couldn't picture yodeling in Argentina or the Philippines. I'm sure if parents, if their daughter was caught yodeling, it'd be like, oh, off to the convent for you. You gotta stop singing the devil's music. Okay, and another selfish stat that I have is consecutive countries / legs I have visited in a row, starting with the season premiere of a season. So I tracked it all out. So far for season 34, I visited each of the first 2 countries featured. When I was in Austria, my most memorable moment was on the way from Slovakia from Hungary. I had to transfer in a tiny town called Parndorf, and the train station there was just 2 tracks. I jumped off in Parndorf thinking, this can't be the right stop. Then a guy came out of there, yelled in really harsh German, try and ask me a question. Then I responded in English, and then his register for his voice went really up and was a super pleasant English voice. telling me how to get to Bratislava. I mean, it was only one. There were only 2 tracks. It'd be tough to mix it up. And it was just barren field, a couple of buildings. Not the most touristy place, but if you want to really see the rural countryside in the absolute middle of nowhere, make Parndorf your next destination when you visit Austria. And just to reiterate, yes, we did lose Rex and Ryan this week. I'm only repeating that because Nerdtainment and Reality Realness with 3 L's or 3 Y's or 3 I's, they don't even remember what they ate for breakfast that morning. So I'm just repeating it for them so that when they do the recaps, that by repetition, he'll just drill into their brain so they can remember certain teams from this cast. And that's it for stats for this week from me. And as I said before, really, really tight schedule. Didn't have as much time this week. I know it's not a half-hour recording, but again, we just can't squeeze Kim and Penn in today. I've really got stuff to do. So next week we'll have the Kim and Penn interview. So feel free to like and subscribe so you're notified when the Kim and Penn interview happens for the episode 3 stats breakdown. And otherwise, just peace out and chill till the next episode.